Yeah, man.
Cool.
What's up, guys? Nat Man Podcast back here, episode 21. Tonight we have Northeast Ohio's own Sammi Cappelli, professional walleye angler. He's a national champion, several high level wins at the national level, more accolades than I can really name off to you right now. But he's going to give us some juice tonight and tell us a couple good stories, he says. So, what are you thinking, Aaron?
This is kind of like Tom Wynn all over again, man. I'm amped up to
Right.
learn how to catch these little boogers, and this is just something that is completely foreign to me. So anytime I get a chance to learn a little bit, especially being this close to Lake Erie, it gets me excited. So I'm pretty fired up for it.
Yeah, I'm pumped up myself. It's good to change up the pace. We've had a streak of bass fishing related episodes, so sometimes it's good to mix it up, and excited to hear about it.
Yeah, we really need to get someone that can teach me how to catch those massive like channel cats and flatheads and whatever they are. I want to catch one of those ones that you have to like hold with two hands and tails are touching the ground. So if anybody out there knows a catfish guru, get us in contact with them.
Get a noodler.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, find a snapping turtle.
I've seen the size of these snapping turtles that live in these local reservoirs, and I'll pass on that.
Yeah.
But
All right. Well, let's get it rolling. Sammi, I was going to tell you we're a couple of bass losers. So the best thing for you to do is, we're here to learn something for you. So from you. So when you're explaining something, just explain it to us like we're watching you in a seminar. Because I'd like to learn something tonight. So, and I don't know a ton about walleye fishing other than I love to eat them. So.
Well, I hardly ever eat them. I don't even keep them. I get so tired of seeing them. Last thing I want to do is clean them, and so
Yeah.
I have zero fish in my freezer.
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
We keep 4 or 5 packs for Lent because we're Catholic, my wife and I. So I'll fry up some fish on Ash Wednesday or on Friday during Lent, and that's about it.
Well, Sammi, thanks for joining us. Yeah, we appreciate you coming on because, like Jesse said, we're bass guys. So if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're doing these days, and how you got to be where you're at. Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. So my name's Sammi Cappelli. I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. Um, Been fishing walleye since I was probably 10, 12 years old. My dad used to take me to Mosquito Lake back long before you guys probably were even born, back in the 80s. But so I grew up fishing Mosquito Lake and Pymatooning and Berland, all the inland lakes. And then when I was 18, when I was 16, I bought my first boat, and it was just a little Myers 12-footer, and I had an old probably 1969 9 on her, 9.5 horsepower Johnson. But I just loved to be on the water. And then when I was 18, I bought when I graduated high school, I got a job at Rockwell International, and I bought my first boat. I bought an 18-foot Starcraft. It was a 1972, and so I convinced my dad to go to Lake Erie, and
He's all right.
I
Keep
convinced.
going.
Sorry about that. I don't know if you heard my dogs,
It's
but
not the first time.
I'm even in my office and I shut the door. But so I convinced my dad to go to Lake Erie. My dad's an old Italian guy. He's like, "We're not going to Lake Erie. People die up there, and it's too rough, and all this other." So we started fishing inside the breakwall that summer, and by the end of the summer, we were up with the charter boats, and all we had was spinning rods. We each hold a rod in our hand. Back then, it was bomber longays, and we just hold a rod in our hand and just throw around, and we get our limit of fish. And the fishing in the late '80s and early '90s on Lake Erie was incredible. I mean, it's good now. It's really good now. There's probably more walleye in the lake, but you got a lot more boats. Back in the late '80s and early '90s, the limit was 10 per person. And you didn't see all these little, these 20-foot Rangers and stuff running around. It was just charter boats and a few 18, 19-foot, Starcrafts or whatever like that, handful of guys. But the limit was 10. And my dad and I used to go out there and get our 20 fish in a few hours. And those fish were all like 5 to 10 pounds. I mean, they were giants. But when I was in high school, I was working on charters too. I was supposed to be playing football, but I played at Youngstown Mooney, and my dad, I'd come home from practice, and my dad would be like, "How was practice?" And I'm like, "I was all right." And he says, "Well, Coach Butchie or Coach Stoops called and said you weren't at practice. Where were you?" Well, I was down Mill Creek Park catching carp. And so, anyways, that's what I did, man. I just loved the fish, and I played football for 11 years, and I just didn't want to play anymore. But my dad, he kept pushing me to play. But, anyways, I ended up quitting my junior year of football because all I wanted to do was fish. I didn't want to do double sessions. And my senior year, my class won state. They won a state championship, and and I was a starter and both sides of the ball and everything. And so my dad always had that, was always upset with me because I quit. He always said, "You could have got a ring. You could have got a ring." Well, I kept fishing, and my dream was to win a national championship. And in 2017, I won a Cabela's national championship. So I got a ring for that. So I gave my dad that ring and said, "Hey, I didn't get a state football championship ring, but I got a national championship ring for football." So
Nice.
Do you regret quitting at all now that you're older?
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I wish I would have played my, junior or senior year, or just with all my friends and everything.
Yeah.
I did miss. I did enjoy football, but back then they really didn't check for concussions, and
Right.
I remember coming home on the bus and not knowing if we won or lost the game. Sometimes, I mean,
Yeah.
because I mean, back then it was pretty rough.
Yeah,
So
it was different times. I was just curious. I'm getting a little older now, and I've got a couple little regrets with sports like that, and I figured you felt the same way. But
yeah.
yeah, well, that's cool. You got the national title with the Walleye Tour, man. You've become quite the little local legend. I don't know. That's what we say in the Northeast Ohio, but what back to your story of you and your dad venturing out beyond the break walls. What did it take for you to coerce him? Was it just one of them days where he finally, uh, you know, felt froggy enough to venture out onto the lake?
Well,
A good south wind.
fishing running first mate on the charter boats. I did that a little bit while I was in high school, and I got my captain's license when I was 18 or 19. But I, I learned right away about playing the wind, south wind on Lake Erie on the South Shore. If you get anything under 15, you're pretty good. So I just picked the right days. I knew better to take him out, in the Northeastern or something like that. That was 10 to 20. But we did eventually. Start fishing and stuff like that. I mean, we were out there in 2 to 4s, 3 to 5s. And, then I had like the old Penn 209 reels that I bought at Dunham's for like $40 for a setup. And we started running wire line, things like that. And then when I was around 21, 22, I bought a Penn Yang. And so I had a 23-foot Penn Yang that I kept up there too and ran some charters, but mainly just fun fishing.
Yeah.
So.
Nice.
But I learned a lot. Even with the technology. I mean, when I first started fishing Lake Erie, I had a compass. We didn't have
Mm.
GPS. We had a compass to go off, and then a few years in, they came out with the Loran C that ran off of towers, and all they were numbers. TDs and your time and distance or longitude, latitude. You had to write the numbers down when you found a school of fish, and figure out the further west you go, the bigger the numbers you get. The further north you go, the bigger the numbers get. Things like that.
Oh
Um,
man.
so I carried a notebook with all these numbers written down when I caught fish and where I caught fish and with the harbor and everything. But the thing that was bad about them, when you get a thunderstorm coming, or a tower would go down, you'd lose signal. And then when they came out the GPS and I first got my chart plotter, with actual screen on it and I could see where I'm at, I'm like, this is unbelievable.
Spoiled now.
Yeah,
It's crazy, isn't it?
it's crazy. So
Yeah.
So I want to come back to this because you've literally seen it from the very beginning to where it's at now, and I want to dig into that a little bit more. Um, but going from 1819 with a captain's license, like when did you do your first tournament? Like when were you like, hey, I want to start competing?
so I started fishing like just Mosquito Lake tournaments, things like that. I got a couple crappie tournaments, and then I joined in around 1998. Western Reserve Walleye Association came about. John Breelove and Jimmy Breelove started that, and so I started fishing that. It was like $40 to get in the tournament. We fished Mosquito, Pomatuning, Milton, Berlin. So I started competing there, and I thought I was a pretty good fisherman, back then. And you show up that first tournament in April, and it's 30 degrees and snowing, and you go out and you struggle to catch one fish, let alone five, and you come in with one or zero or two, whatever, think it's a bad day of fishing, and you come in and you see these guys weighing 10, 12 pounds and five fish and talking how they caught, 20 fish that day, and I couldn't catch one. And so I learned right away that there's always active fish. You just got to find them. You got to know where to look, and just keep trying, keep fishing. And so after the first year or so, then I started cashing checks, and then I started moving up the bigger stuff, fishing the Masters Walleye Circuit. I always wanted to win one of those, and so I started fishing that. And again, we're fishing all over the country, and going to different waters and lakes that I'd never even seen, and so I just started learning a little bit more about different lakes and different techniques and things like that. And finally, after fishing a ton of tournament in a few years, I finally won my first Masters in 2023. I won two of them, but one of our fish died, and we got a 8-ounce penalty, and so we finished second. We lost by two ounces, cost me $18,000. But we won Team of the Year in 2003 for Cabela's for the MWC. So, but I learned a lot fishing tournaments. Just being at the weigh-in, and even with you guys fishing for bass. I tell people all the time, I tell kids all the time, come to the weigh-in and see what, we bring in or the other guys bring in, how many fish they bring in. And everybody, if someone asks me how I caught them, I'll tell them, and you can get so much information if you're trying to learn how to fish for walleye or bass or whatever, just going and watching a weigh-in and listening what the anglers are talking about. And most of the guys come off stage, take a few pictures, and if you got a question, just walk up to them, and they're more than happy to answer a question. And that's what helped me. I wasn't afraid to approach some of these guys and just ask them, "Hey, man, can you help me out? What line should I be using? What jig should I have been throwing?" And things like that. But um, I tell the story at my seminars that my dad and my grandfather and my uncles used to tell me that walleye are a cold water fish. They're sensitive light, and they're a deep water fish. So I went down the wrong road when I first started fishing tournaments, because I'm always looking for the deepest part of the lake. And come to find out, on the inland lakes, 90% of the time I'm fishing less than 5 feet of water, and that's where I catch all my fish. So you guys were talking about being bass guys. I fish the same spots you fish. You go to
Yeah.
Mosquito Lake, I'm in the lily pads. I'm in the weeds, the
Yep.
thickest stuff I could find. And I could go through there and probably catch 10 walleye, never touch a bass. And you guys could come through right behind me, catch 10 bass, and never touch a walleye. It's
Yeah.
just different presentations, different techniques. So,
Yeah. So what's that tell you when we're bass fishing and are catching a bunch of walleye? They're really biting then, aren't they?
okay.
I've,
I mean,
I've
we
had
do catch.
I've had a couple days on mosquito and tournaments where freaking a big walleye's broken my heart because I thought it was the fish I needed. But there's some healthy fish in that lake, man, for sure. There's some healthy
Oh,
fish
yeah.
in that lake.
That happened to me this spring at Mosquito. I hooked. I mean, it was probably, I don't know, maybe 3 pounds, 4 pounds, and dude, I I thought I had the winning fish right there, and I got up to the boat and he rolled, and I was like, "Oh, you rascal!"
How Sammy, how's the walleye fishing on Mosquito now compared to when you were a kid?
Um, I think, like, if you had asked me that 5 years ago, I would have said it's way better. But now that they're spraying the weeds out there and just ruined habitat, it's getting tougher to find a fish. And I haven't been fishing Mosquito or any of the inland lakes because I've been traveling for the MWC and the National Walleye Tour. So I really haven't been spending any time. But some of my buddies, Naples and Durkins, they usually do pretty well in those tournaments, and they said that they're not catching any small fish at Mosquito Lake. So back in the day, on a good bite like our May tournament on Mosquito Lake for 5 fish, if you weighed in 12 pounds, 13 pounds, you had a pretty good bag. And the last couple of years, we're seeing bags of 18 to 22 pounds, but it's hard to. They're not catching those 15 inches, 16 inches. Actually, I think Mosquito, there was no size limit on walleye as long as I can remember, and they just put a 15-inch limit on there this year.
Really? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But Pimatooning, that lake is awesome. I mean, there's big fish in that lake right now, but again, they're spraying the weeds there, and you know that tournament they had in June. Normally, it would take about 25 pounds to cast a check for
Wow.
5 fish. We weighed almost 30 pounds there for 5 fish, and we won the tournament. But now that the weeds are gone, Naples and Durkin and a couple other guys that jig a lot, they struggled just to catch 5 fish a day. Actually, they were leading the tournament with 4 fish on day one with almost 15 pounds. Day two, they never caught a fish.
Yeah. Yeah, we
Uh,
same thing with bass. I don't think it's the weed, the spraying's helping.
Yep.
so I want to go back to what you were saying about how you can hit the same stretch we do and catch walleye, and vice versa. Um, Really, the only time I ever kind of stumble into a walleye is if I'm either throwing a crankbait, maybe a spinnerbait, or a chatterbait, something kind of bait fish type presentation. But it's incredibly rare. So I guess, like, what are you doing different than what we're doing? Whether it's your version of jigging versus our version of throwing a jig.
Get a little personal now. No.
I want the color, I want the size, and I want the depth.
So I mean, I use a spinning reel like a 6'3" medium action, fast tip, 10-pound test braid. I use a bright color braid like fluorescent yellow because I want to be able to see my line. Then I take a 15-inch fluorocarbon leader, like 8-pound test if I'm jigging. I throw all 16th ounce Northland or oh man, Lindy jigs, just a wide gap hook, 16th ounce. So then we just take a half a crawler and we just thread a crawler on there and leave a little piece of the tail hanging off. But you were saying that the only time you catch a walleye is when you're throwing a crankbait or a spinnerbait. Where we're fishing, there's no casting. I get dead in the middle of those weeds with my 22-foot Vexus. And most of the time, I don't even put my trolling motor down. I just kind of float. And then we got these, we call them poor man power poles. It's like a pool stick. You screw them together, and they got a sharp point on the end. We'll stick those down in the mud, and we'll tie off to them, and then maybe we'll tie the front of the boat. Start with the front of the boat tied off to it. Then we'll move forward and tie the back of the boat because I figure my boat's almost 23 feet, so I could cover 23 feet the whole way around. And then if we move from the tie off to the front of the back of the boat, then I'm covering another, 20 some feet of water. We'll just let the wind push us. But all we're doing, we fish the lily pads. The lily pads with the weeds are the best. And we're just pitching in, dipping in holes as big as a quarter. I mean, you drop that jig down there and let it hit the bottom, lift it up a little bit, and let it hit the bottom, and your line's coiled up on the water, and you'll see your line jump. And that's that walleye sucking that jig in. And just before you even set the hook, say, get the net. because then you got to horse them out of there. So at Palma Tuning, we fished a 2-day championship. A fish Ohio walleyes, 28 inches. I had 3 fish Ohio walleyes in the 2-day tournament. I weighed 47 pounds for 10 fish, but I had a 10-pounder up a legit 30-incher to the front of the boat, and I'm hollering, get the net to my teammate. And by the time he got up there, I just tried to horse him in the boat because he was getting tangled up in the stocks, the lily pads, and I couldn't get him in. But that fish, we would have won a tournament. We had to finish in second. But that would have been my 4th fish Ohio at a Palma Tuning in a 2-day tournament.
Man.
So that's what we're doing.
Them suckers, they thrive in the shallow water, don't they?
Well, why are they in there? Do you have any idea why they're in there?
I mean, if they're anything like bass, my guess is oxygen and bait.
I agree. And here's I think the main factor in that is so we were at mosquito fishing a tournament and we were in the lily pads and I had a good one on, like a 24-incher. And it got tangled up in the lily pad stocks, and I'm like, I'm getting in. My teammate's like, what? I was like, I'm not losing this fish. I'm getting. So I jumped in the water, and my body like almost went into shock instantly because the water was like 15 degrees cooler than the rest of the lake. So all them lily pads laying on there is like a bunch of umbrellas. It keeps that water so cold, and that's why you got more oxygen in it, and you got all the bait fish in there, and bluegills and perch and walleye and bass. That's why they're in there. Yeah. That's my opinion on it. But
no,
and I did get the fish.
Makes sense. Nice. Needed a GoPro that day, didn't you?
Yeah. So how does that translate to the bigger bodies of water like Lake Erie? Because when I think of walleye fishing, like all I think is just dragging a spoon or some sort of plug behind the boat and just waiting until the line bends over. Like that's just kind of where walleye fishing kind of sinks in my brain.
Yeah, I mean, if you want me to go through like how I started fishing, I mean, with dipsy divers and wire line, letting out 300 feet of line and cranking in, a little bomber or, a small bait, cranking for hours trying to get it in. But I always fish deep. I mean, when you go to Ashley Village anyway, you go out to 72 feet of water and start fishing, right? Same with Connie. You might go out to the trenches, 80 feet of water. People are pulling, wire and dipsies and things like that. Or if they're running boards, sometimes they're snap weighting bandits and things like that. But what I found over the years of fishing tournaments before forward facing sonar was I'd go out there at 72 feet of water, but I caught most of my big fish, my tournament fish, like the first 5 to 7 feet below the surface. And how we figured that out, we were fishing out there one day, and I'm telling you, we were like 6 to 8 footers. It just blew up, and we were already out in a tournament. And I'm like, I'm fishing. And I'm standing up on the boat, and I told my teammate, I'm like, I swear I just seen a walleye. He's like, what? I'm like, I just seen a walleye in the surface. He's like, no way. So we let out a line like 20 feet and we put it on a board and it was gone, buried. And, we were running shallows like before P10s. They were shallow diving band or bomber long A's. 20 feet of line out, mono, no snap weight or nothing, put it on a board, boom. So we started running spinners with 1/4 ounce weights like 20 feet back. And then we did 1 ounce weights like 20 feet back. So it put you down like 8 to 10 feet. And that's where we caught all our big fish. So I started fishing real high in the water column. And I think a lot of that is a lot of the bait is up high. I mean, if you ever stand, when you're out there, just stand on your boat and look down at the water and there's just schools of bait fish. Yeah. And I think those bigger fish just come up and, the feed. Yeah. So.
Makes sense.
Do you think that that's a seasonal deal, or does that kind of run pretty consistent most of the fishable year?
Well, so like if you go to Lake Erie in the spring and you go to the western end because most of the fish go up there to spawn, you could go to the reefs and jig up all the males you want. Once in a while, you'll catch a female, but all the fish on the reefs are the males waiting for a female to come in to drop her eggs. Those big female, they're suspended out in that deeper water, 40 feet of water, 50 feet of water. And I was always told that you can't catch those pre-spawn females. You could catch them, but you got to fish really high for them. So we'll run bandits out there in the springtime, April and May, and even into March. But we'll run bandits 15, 20 feet back. Same with reef runners back when we used to run reef runners 20 feet back, 30 feet back. But we're always fishing really, really high in the water column, over 40, 50 feet of water, and that's where you catch all our big ones. And they're all pre-spawn females. And then you could come down to, like now, the Central Basin, Ashtabula, Geneva, and do the same thing. Run your lines real high to water column. But I fished a tournament yesterday out of Conneaut, LEWT tournament, and I only got to pre-fish one day, and I caught all my fish. I caught two 8-pounders in like 16 feet of water pre-fishing, and I lost another one that was like 26, 27 inches, and then I ended up catching a couple 23s and 24s, less than 20 feet of water. I didn't go 100 yards away from the break wall, but
Wow.
that was forward facing sonar. We'll get into that, I'm sure, but forward facing sonar is like when we went from a compass to a Loran C to a GPS. The new technology's there, and you just got to learn it. And forward facing sonar has been out for a few years. I had it for 3 years, and I just, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go out on the lake. I'm going to learn this, and then I struggle for an hour trying to catch fish, and then I put the trolling stuff out, and I put the forward facing sonar away. Well, I told myself after fishing, I fished 2 seasons on a national walleye tour, thinking 21 and 22, and I made it top 40 pros for the championship both years. Cashed a check, at least one check in both years, so it kept me going. But these young kids they're kicking our butts, plain and simple. They put that forward face sonar down, and they know how to catch fish. I mean, look at Corey Springle. I don't know if you guys know Corey Springle, but Corey Springle was like top dog, won more money in an NWT than anybody. He's a younger guy, and he's probably 30 now, early 30s. But ever since forward facing sonar, like the last 2 or 3 years, he's been struggling to cast a check. I mean, he's learning forward facing sonar, but he's more of a troller, worm harness guy, and he's really, really good. He's probably one of the best NWT pros to ever fish it. But John Hoyer learned forward facing sonar, Max Wilson. These guys are just Dylan Nussbaum from New York or Pennsylvania. These guys are just, they put that trolling motor down and scan around, and they just stand there and hold their rod. I've seen John Hoyer do it in 4 to 6 footers in a tournament last year on Lake Erie, and I was trolling right by him. I had 4 rods out, and he had 1 rod, just standing there in 4 to 6 footers, see a fish, cast to it, and catch it. I asked him after the tournament, I go, how many times did you cast today? He said 15. And he won the tournament.
Jeez.
So they know exactly how big the fish is and all that. So the last 2 years, I've been really, really working on learning forward facing sonar. I run all Lowrance active target 2. And, I started from the basics. I learned how to wire my boat with clean power. That's the most important thing, is clean power. And so I ran, I got a dedicated lithium 140 amp hour battery just for my electronics, just for my forward facing sonar setup. And the rest of my electronics are on a different battery. But up front, I want my black box on its own circuit back to my battery. And I want my 2 graphs up front. I got a 16 and a 12 up front, own circuit, clean power. That's how you start, because you want the cleanest screen you could get. And then it's just YouTube videos. That's all I did, was watch YouTube videos and learn this stuff. Watch bass guys, casting, crappie guys. And then I went out and just practiced. I left all the trolling rods at home. I forced myself to learn this, and I'm getting better.
So we had Tom Wynn on here a couple months ago, and he kind of, I don't want to say disrupted the walleye scene by showing up in a bass boat with forward facing sonar and and he's done really well.
Yep.
So the last couple of years, how much have you seen uh, guys winning with like traditional walleye methods versus forward-facing sonar? I mean, is the top of the field really being dominated by the forward-facing sonar guys, or is it still a pretty
Absolutely.
decent mix?
Absolutely. They said the top 40 pros last year, um, out of the top 40 pros, the top 20 teams were all forward facing sonar guys. And then from 20 to 30, there was three teams or three pros in there that were trollers.
Okay.
So, I
Wow.
mean, it's dominating. I mean, you can't, if you don't learn forward facing sonar, you can't. That's why I stopped fishing the National Walleye Tour, because I have to learn this. I have to force myself to learn it. And I didn't wasn't sure. I wanted to learn it, but I didn't know if I'd use it in a national walleye tour, because I'm a little bit different. Like when I draw a co-angler that I don't know, most of the time I don't know who these guys are as my amateur for the day. I want them to have fun too. And
Sure.
even when I'm pre-fishing, you know, I look for fish, but if I find big fish, that are 50 miles away, a big run, I always try to look closer too, because I don't know who I'm going to draw as a co, and I want them to have a good time. I don't want to, get a older guy that's retired and stuff, and have to make a 50-mile run in 3 to 5 footers, and him have a horrible time or somebody get hurt. But now I'm just, I just force myself, like, well, my point about that is when I'm up on the front of the boat, it's pretty much a one-man show.
Yeah.
I'm up there. I got two shuttles in the back of the boat that, I could put on each side of the boat. My co-angler could kind of, they're 12-inch graphs with active target too. I mean, they're the same setup I'm running up front, and he could cast the fish off the back of the boat. But the problem is I'm chasing fish down with my trolling motor. I got that thing on 6, 8, or 10, and I'm just scanning around looking for them. And when I see them, I got my screen out 80 feet, so I'm forward mode shining out to 80 feet. And when I see a fish, I'm driving to it to catch it. And what I found is, I asked a couple of the guys that have been doing really good on NWT, how can I get better at this? And so they told me, you live on the best lake. You live right by the best lake in the world to learn forward fish sonar for walleye, Lake Erie. And they're like, go up there and power cork. And I'm like, power cork? And they're like, yeah, take slip bobbers and go up there and throw a slip bobber with a jig on it. And so that's what I've been doing. And it's incredible. I mean, how many fish I catch. I could go out and catch 50 fish a day, and you get so tired of catching them, you don't even cast till you see a big one. I mean, that's how good it is. But so back in the day, last year when I was learning this, I was out in 70 feet of water. I'm casting the 40 fish that are 40 feet down, 50 feet down. I can see them there, so I cast, and I'm casting like a jigging wrap, and that jig's falling to them, and by the time it gets to them, they move over a little bit. But if I got that jig to fall on top of their head and snapped it once or twice, they would eat it every time. If I seen a fish, I would catch it. 90% of the time, they were eating it. But the problem is, when I snap it, I'm pulling it away from them. I'm pulling back to the boat like a jigging wrap or just a jig in a night crawler. You pull it, get them to chase it. You're pulling it away from them. And
Yeah.
sometimes they will chase it and eat it. With a slip bobber, all I do is that slip bobber is just there to keep me vertical, to keep that. I throw that slip over right over top the fish, so that jig's falling right down on their head. When I pull it, it's going up in the water column. They chase it up, they chase it down. You're not pulling it away from them. You're keeping it in the strike zone forever. And you learn so much with forward facing sonar. You can see how fish react to, maybe a swim bait or a vibey or, jigging wrap. Even a jigging wrap on a bobber, you could do it. Drop that thing down, throw it out there, and jerk on it, just like you're vertical jigging. And you can see how they're reacting. And I tell my buddies all the time, I'm like, back in the day, we'd be pre-fishing or fishing a tournament, and we'd hook one and lose it halfway in while we're jigging, and we'd be like, man, I just missed one. And we were like, did he feel the hook? We were like, yeah, he felt the hook, and then boom, a fish would hit it. Oh, I got another one. And watching forward facing sonar, Last Sunday I was out there. I lost a 28-inch fish. I lost him 4 times on one cast. He ate it. I had him. I reeled probably 5 or 6 clicks. Came off. I watched him on the screen. All I did was open the bell. He chased it, picked it up again, had him hooked for like a second, came off, dropped it again, and he ate it again. 4 times he ate that bait, and I still caught him. It was
Wow.
incredible. But you could see how they react. And to me, I thought if they feel the hook, they feel something in their mouth that they're not going to bite again. But if you think about it, I know walleye eat like yellow perch. I can't even hold a yellow perch without getting a dorsal fin or a gill plate or something. I mean, so if walleye are eating that, they're getting that gill plate in the roof of their mouth. So it's probably second nature for them to feel a hook or, a pinch in their mouth. If they could even feel it,
I've
who
never
knows?
even thought about that, but that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Do the
And
walleye tend to want to feed up? Like, are you best off with your bait above their head? Do you think?
that's the other thing that I learned with forward facing sonar. Just like I was telling you about how we found those fish way up in the water column on Lake Erie.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the fish, I don't even look at the bottom. Most of the fish I catch are 5 feet under the water, under the surface. All my big fish, they're all way up in the water column.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is get them to chase that jig. It drops on their head. You can see them swimming for it. All I do is kind of, just pull on it a little bit, and they'll either eat it or if they swipe at it. The bigger fish obviously are a little bit more finicky most of the time. But if I drop that jig, they chase it, and I just hold it there and let it hover there, and they'll come up and eat it a little bit, and I'll pull it up and they'll whack it. Now, if they don't hit it, I'll drop it to the bottom and just count the 3 after it hits the bottom because I can see my jig hit the bottom. I can see them chase it. You can see their tail pointed up, so I know, and they just pin it right to the bottom. I just count the 3 and set the hook. But
Really?
I don't even run a bobber stop. I started, setting if I'm fishing 20 feet of water, I set my bobber stop to 30. But the problem I'm having is every time I cast, sometimes I hit that bobber stop and I throw my worm off or I make a bad cast. I took the bobber stops off. I'm just that bobber, that slip bobber is just there to keep me vertical.
So
Nice.
you're just
It's
watching your
amazing.
bait fall, and then when you know you're at that, just give it a little bit of attention to hold it there, and then jig it a couple times.
Huh.
It's the hardest thing that I learned with forward face sonar is my cast. Because that beam's not very very wide shooting out there, and it's hard to judge in open water 40, 50, 60, 70 feet. You know what I mean? So I learned to cast past them. I always try to cast like 5 feet past them or 10 feet past them. And now I got my graph. Lowrance came out with another update yesterday, a 25.2 update, and now you can see the surface, like when your jig hits the water, you can see the splash and then the jig falling. But you know, I use that bobber just to see where I'm casting, so it hits the water and be like, yeah, it looks like 40 feet, and then it falls. But what I did with to learn that, I went to Lake Berlin and I set up on a bridge so I set up like 30 feet away from the trestle, one of the pillars, so I could see that pillar 30 feet away. I could see it on my graph what it looks like, and I could see all the crappie swimming around. And I just practice casting and I just kept moving around, moving different, just kept casting because you can see exactly how far that pillar is on your graph. If it's 30 feet, you kind of start gauging it. And then when you go on open water, you kind of know, how far 30 feet is or 40 feet. So that helped out a lot.
Yeah.
So if you considered kind of your knowledge of forward facing sonar and how good you are with it now on a scale of 1 to 10, like where would you put yourself and like how much more do you have to learn?
I'm probably a 5.
Okay.
My buddies and I go out and I had 3 guys on a boat. We boated 45 fish that day. I caught 38 of them. I
Oh,
mean, I
wow.
was catching, releasing them,
Yeah.
and they're like, "You're so good at this. You're so good at it." And I'm like, "No, I'm not, man. I'm like, I'm not that good at it. These guys that we fish against are good. I mean, they'll just stand there and hold their rod, and they'll be like, John Hoyer told us co-angler last year on day one because I knew the co-angler to fish with them. He said, I was watching the screen and I seen a fish. He scanned out to the left and I seen a fish out there 30 feet. And I cast it. John looked over his shoulder and said, don't even catch that fish at 20, 23 inches. Well, he's like, I caught it. It was 23 inches. I mean, they know
See,
exactly.
that's
I've been
nuts.
on a boat with them, and not with John, but with other pros that are really good on this. And they're like, there's a 19, there's a 21, there's a 26, and you could catch those
Yeah,
fish, and they're exactly 19, 21, and 26.
it's
They know
crazy.
exactly how big they are.
That's crazy, man.
So, but
Well,
yeah, I got a lot to learn, but I'm getting better. I mean, you just got to keep practicing.
well, and the reason I ask is because obviously there's only so many good weather days that the average guy can get out and practice. But uh, you practice through the winter too, correct?
Yeah, on the ice.
Okay.
So I was telling you about clean power and what can I do to make my screen the best screen I could possibly get. So on my boat, you got wind, you got current, you got waves. Your boat's always moving, and it's hard to get stuff dialed in. So I figured if I take my shuttle out on the ice with my graphs, I could, the ice is solid. Drop that thing down in the water, and I could really play with my graphs to fine tune them. I had my graphs so clean, it was unbelievable on the ice. We caught three of us were jigging. We had a live scope, and then we had my active target two in my hole. But we were jigging, and you could see all three of our jigs going up and down. Those two guys had fluorocarbon on. You couldn't see their line. I had braid, and with a 16-inch leader, you could see all my braid down to my leader was nothing, and then my jig. We had this big fish come in. I'm like, we don't even ice fishing. We don't even sit. All we do is sit there and talk. You guys could do podcasts on the ice because nobody's fishing. And it's like wicked tuna. We're marking, and everybody grabs a rod and starts jigging as a fish comes on the screen. And so this fish came on, we're jigging it up, and I pulled my jig up, and he circled up around it. I dropped it, went down at the bottom, and as he made that turn, I could see his fins on the side. I could see his tail, his head, everything. It was crystal clear. Went down, pinned it. I go, I got him. I set the hook, reeled it up. I could see my braid. I can't see my fluorocarbon, but I could see the fish. About three-quarters of the way up, I didn't notice until after I watched the video because I recorded my screen instead of trying to do it with my phone. There's a feature on your active target you can record your screen, and it's crystal clear then instead of you trying to not get a reflection. But I get her almost up to the hole, and she was dropping her eggs when I brought her out of the hole. And I went back and watched the video, and you could see her eggs falling out of her
Wow.
when she got about 2/3 of the way up. I'll send you
Is that
guys a video.
Do you
is
still
that, is
have
that,
that? Yeah, go ahead,
What's
Aaron.
that?
is that video on your Facebook?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I watched it like right before we jumped on here, and
Yep.
it was incredible. Like you said, like you could see the other jigs bouncing, but then when you set that hook, like you could see that bright yellow
Yep.
return from your line.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
crazy.
It's, so yeah, it's all about getting the cleanest power that you can get on your graphs, and so you get the cleanest screen out there because if your screen's all cluttered, then people turn their noise rejection to like medium or high, and you're kind of losing a lot of fish that you're not seeing. And so if you got a clean screen, then you could put that to low or off and turn your contrast way up. That's what's nice about Lowrance Active Target and their pro units is there's really not a whole lot of adjustments. Once you get your transducer position, then it's just contrast and picking your color palette. As I said, they had the 25.1 update like 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and the ranchers came up with the 25.2, and it gave you three more color palettes on the Lowrance Pro units for your active target, and they're pretty sweet. So you got like I think 13, 8 or 11 of them now, 11 different colors, and a lot of I run number 8. I think it's 11 now, but I'm just used to that one. Um, the newer palettes, the brighter palettes, what I found is you could turn your contrast down a lot more, like between 40 and 50, where your 1 through 6 palettes, they're a lot darker. You have to turn that contrast up to like 85 to 90. So the higher you turn that contrast up, the more power, more battery you're using.
Hmm.
So those brighter palettes, I think, use less battery, less voltage, less amperage, or whatever. but because you turn the contrast down so low.
I wanted to ask you, Sammy, in bass fishing, at least it seems like with all the technology, the tournament fishing, there's kind of two different camps. The guys that are getting a little older like us, there's a lot of them that are adapting with positivity, like you seem to be, and there's other ones that are just completely against it. I was wondering how that seemed to you in the walleye world, and like some of these professional bass circuits, like you already saw the NPFL just went no forward facing. Like, do you see the walleye circuits doing that to where there's one like with a technology barrier, or is it being more accepted by
Well,
everyone?
I mean, I think that the issue that we're having um, is in a national walleye tour because you sign up as a pro and then they give you a co-angler. And like I said, it's pretty much a one-man show. You know, the pro's on the front of the boat chasing fish down, and the guy on the back of the boat, every time he goes to cast for a fish, the boat's moving this way or that way, and
Now, is
you're
he in
pulling
a
away.
separate
So
tournament with his separate fish, or are you guys a team in the tournament?
yeah. So when you fish the National Walleye Tour, I sign up as a pro. It's $2,000 for me to get in, and
Yeah.
then they give me an amateur. I think they're $650 for
Uh
the
huh.
tournament. So on day one, I may fish with you, and we're a team. And if we catch 20 pounds, then that
Okay.
co goes fish with someone else on day two and takes that 20 pounds, and I keep my weight. You know, so the pro has a they got their own pot of money, and the co anglers have their own pot of money. But what I'm seeing is a lot of the co's. You still got co's signing up because they want to see how you're
Right.
using forward facing sonar. I mean, I got people calling me all the time, like, "Hey, I'll give you $1,000, take me out and show you." Well, I just I'm not interested in doing it because I got 500 hours on that graph, and it took me a long time to figure it out. I take guys out, then I got to fish against them, and I just taught them how to use the stuff in an hour. But I just ain't got the time to do it, to be honest with you. But I don't know if it's going to hurt the NWT. A lot of co's are losing interest because they're sitting in a seat and not even fishing, or just sitting there dragging something because the pros are chasing fish down. I know my teammate Anthony Naples for the MWC. He's done fishing team events with me because he feels that he's holding me back because I try not to use my forward facing sonar because we're a team. I want both of us to catch fish, and he just dislikes forward facing sonar. He thinks it's cheating and everything else. Me, I could care less if they get rid of it or they keep it. I want to compete. I love doing this, and I want to fish maybe professionally, maybe another 5 years. Then I'm gonna retire from it because I'm just tired of traveling. But and if I want to compete, then I got to learn it. I mean, if
Right.
whatever the
Well,
rules are is what we play by. And
yeah. Oh, and you
so
seem to have a great attitude. I mean, you're just, you're realistic with it. Like you said, you think you're a five, like, and you're just putting in the time to, you know, compete.
yeah,
It seems the younger generation that was kind of more raised on screens, the learning curves is so much faster. The
yeah,
coordination and stuff's there for them. But yeah,
yeah. I mean, even with our eyes, it's hard to wear glasses. When you're looking at the screen, and I mean, I had LASIK surgery done a couple years ago, and it helped out. But being on a computer for work every day, and it's just I just went to the eye doctor the other day, and stuff's starting to get blurry. That's why I keep telling my wife my eyes are bad. I need a bigger screen. So I
Right.
keep
yeah,
getting bigger and bigger.
And one of
yeah.
those 3 foot risers for the graph mount.
I, I got mine mounted. Actually, I got my boat ripped apart right now because I'm still not happy with my screen. So I'm running some new wire to it, a dedicated circuit, and I just put two more batteries in there, 140 amp batteries just for my electronics. And so, but I got a 14-inch riser, a Cisco mount. So I got a 16 sitting up there and then a 12 right below it. And I was going to put two 16s on it, but it's just too much weight. And I take my graphs off when I'm running. If there's any waves, I don't want anything to bust or break and mess up my boat. But it is nice. I mean, you got that big screen, and I kind of positioned it. I could have went higher, but I kind of positioned it so I can look at my screen and the top of my trolling motor because my transducer is mounted to the shaft of my Ultrex. So wherever that trolling motor is pointing, that's where I have to cast. That's where my transducer is pointing. So I could just kind of look at my graph, and right at the top of it, I could see the top of my transducer, and I can make a cast and see my bobber all. I'm not, looking up and down all around. It's all one shot, and so it works out nice for me. But it's not only like our eyes adjusting, and these kids are way better. These young guys are way better than on electronics because they grew up playing video games. I mean, that's what we call them as gamers in the fishing world. And I grew up playing Space Invaders or something with Atari. It's nothing like they had, but I'm trying to learn this. But it's the physical part of it. I was 235 pounds, and I've been eating a lot better and working out, and I'm down to 200. I lost 35 pounds because being on the water, fishing, pre-fishing 6-7 days, 10, 12 hours a day, up there looking down at your screen the whole time, you're beat up, man. And so I had to drop some weight, just get in better shape so I could do this. And, the whole front of my legs and the back of my neck is tan. The rest of me, I'm white. I got Ford Faces sonar tan. I just
That's what a buddy told me. All the forward facing now, the chiropractors got a lot of job security here in about 20 years. All these young kids they'll be all kinked up.
Yeah. So
So what circuits are you running this year? What's your plan for next year? Are you going back to the National Walleye Tour?
Yeah, I'm still on the fence. There's a National Walleye Tour in 3 weeks in Dunkirk, New York, on Lake Erie, and I think I could do okay in that tournament, but I want to get a little bit better at Ford Face Sonar. I mean, I thought I was getting there, and I went to Lake Erie yesterday for the LEWT, got my butt kicked, but we had a big blow for 2 days, and I only pre-fished one day, and my fish in the shallow waters that were schooled up, 4, 5, 6 fish together, they were scattered. So I had to do a lot of searching to find them. And I mean, I caught some 23 to 25-inch fish, but I had low 20s, and the guys that won it had 34 feet, and they were fishing in 130 feet of water down in New York and Canada, catching Ford Fish Sonar, throwing jigs at them in 130 feet of water, 140 feet of water. Fish, they were suspended 50 feet down, 40 feet down, whatever. So yesterday kind of took the wind out of my sail a little bit, because I thought I was going to do a lot better than I did. But you can't go up there and pre-fish one day and expect to do well. There's a lot of water out there. These fish could be anywhere, and so. But I am thinking about fishing a National Walleye Tour down in Dunkirk, and then next year I might go to a World Championship in Minnesota in October. But next year I may fish a couple tournaments, MWC team events with Ted Takasaki. It's going to be his last year to do any tournaments, and he wanted to team up for a couple tournaments. So I may do that, but I really want to concentrate on the National Walleye Tour. I want to get back in it. So right now I'm in between boats. I got my boat, my 2022 Vexus DVX 22 for sale. It's only 260 hours on it. It's loaded out. So my new boat's at the dealer, but I got to sell my old one before I get my new one. So I'm hoping to get my boat sold and get my new boat for next year.
Maybe one of our listeners will buy it. We'll get that sucker sold for you.
That'd be sweet. It's a great boat, man. I really was hoping that I didn't sell it before the Dunkirk tournament because I know that boat and it's perfect, and I just know how it fishes. So,
right. Sammy, we can edit this out if you don't want to speak on it, but you mentioned the Lake Erie Walleye Tour. Were you there when the guys got caught with the weights and the fish? Were you at that tournament?
We got weights and fish.
No, I was fishing the the MWC World Championship in Green Bay.
What ended up happening to those dudes? Did they lose their licenses or anything? Like, did
Yeah,
they
they
get?
lost their license. I think they got some 10 days in jail and they got some
Yeah,
probation. But, you know, I just, everybody kind of figured that something was going on. Jason Fisher, the guy that cut the weights out of him, he's a good friend of mine. Him and I fish some inland lake stuff together, and he runs a LEWT and a fall bra and things like that. Um, you know, everybody was suspicious of him, but you can't, you know, they passed polygraphs and things like that. So, you know, you can't really
smooth
accuse
operator.
people or anything.
Yeah.
So when, you know, there's a young kid in Columbiana County that had cancer. And so Chase Kaminsky called me and said, "Hey, will you help raise money for this kid?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "What do you want to do?" He goes, "Can you donate a trip?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll donate a trip." And so after talking with Chase a couple times, he's like, "Why don't we do a trip together? We could do like an educational trip for two guys." And I'm like, "That's perfect because I want to learn how you're beating my ass, you know, kicking my butt every tournament. How you winning all this stuff?" And I'm like, "This is perfect." So I called Jason and talked with Jason about it. I'm like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, you know, I don't want to get, if they are doing something wrong, I don't want to be a part of that, you know,
Right.
because that's not who I am. I work for Ohio Department of Corrections, you know, the prison system and stuff, and I try to be about the right thing. And you know, like I tell people, I'll take a butt kicking every weekend just so we're all playing fair. If somebody's cheating, then you know you can't beat someone like that. And so I even met Chase and Jake in person. I mean, I knew Chase. I never fished with either one of them, but I knew him from seeing him at tournaments and stuff. And I met them both. A friend of ours had a fish fry, and I went over and those two stopped by. And I just asked them, I looked them in the eye, and I'm like, "Are you guys legit?" And Chase said, "I passed 13 polygraphs. What else do I got to be?" And I was like, "It's fine. I'm not accusing you of anything, but I just don't want any issues." So, you know, the week that they were fishing for that tournament, there was like 15-foot waves out there, and you know, we were hearing that how they weren't always stuffing weights. I don't think they ever stuff weights. I don't know that as a fact, but I think what they were doing is catching a couple big fish, pre-fishing, then meeting somebody out on the lake, and
Really.
that's the story I heard. And they were, you know, everybody's catching 5-pounders, so it only takes one or two 8-pounders to put you over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And well, that week, you know, it was blowing. I don't think anybody was fishing, and I don't think they could get out there to get any
Had to
big
go to
fish. So
Plan B, huh?
Plan B. But we never
Yeah.
expected 8 pounds of weights, you know. But you know, when that happened, I was
Man.
up in Green Bay, and I was just going up on the stage, and they were interviewing me because we had the biggest bag at a tournament on day three, and you know, we had a chance of doing really good in that tournament. But we I was going up on the stage and they were interviewing me, and someone came over to me and said, "Hey, I'm a reporter, and we just heard that these guys got caught cheating in a walleye tournament at Lake Erie." And I'm like, "What?" And my phone was blowing up. And the same, my other buddy Tony kept calling me, and he was fishing that tournament. And I'm like, "I got to take this call. Something must have happened." And so I'm like, "What's up?" He goes, "They caught him. They caught him cheating." I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "They stuffed weights." I'm like, "I got to go, man. I got to weigh my fish." So I went across the stage, weighed my fish, and when I came off the other side of the stage, there was three reporters there asking me questions
Wow.
because I was from. They said I was from
Yeah.
Ohio, from Youngstown, Ohio, and so they wanted to know what I knew about it. I'm like, "I don't know anything. This just happened 10 minutes ago."
Wow.
But I kept getting these calls from New York, and you know, they weren't leaving messages, but I thought they were spam or something. And I asked Jason. He goes, "What's the number?" And I told him. He goes, "I gave him your number, Jason Fisher." And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "It's ESPN calling you. They want to do an interview." And I'm like, "For what?" And he goes, "Because of the cheaters." I'm like, "Man, I don't know if I want to get wrapped up in this." He goes, "Listen, I talked to the attorneys, and they're like, you guys did nothing wrong. If they want to interview you, then you know it's good for your sponsors. You know, promote your stuff." So, but I talked to ESPN, and they were going to come to my house and do a documentary in my garage, sitting in a boat, just talking about the stuff and you know how it all went down. But we just never put it together. But
Dang.
I'm happy it's over. I wish it would have never happened. You know, whether it was in
Yeah.
the walleye world or crappie or whatever.
Yeah,
It just
that's
kind of we were sported black eye, and it was world news.
Right. That's exactly it. It pissed me off because just through my business and fish and bass tournaments, like the casual person was sending it like, you want everybody to think positively to grow the sport in any manner. And like they don't understand walleye to bat. They just think a tournament cheater, like, well, he fishes tournaments. So it was just a horrible look. And
Yep.
I mean, I don't know either of those guys, but I hope they're never accepted back into that community. They
You
don't
know,
they don't deserve to
it,
be.
everywhere I went, I just heard. I got so sick of hearing it.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, you put weights in your fish. You put weights in your fish. I'm like,
I didn't
that
even want
that's
to ask you about it and
see
how
that
long it's been. Like,
what that
it's I like I said, I didn't even want to ask you about it and how long's it been. Like, it's just like a
you know,
cringy thing to even talk about.
it's different. You guys ask me about it than just someone that
Right.
knows I fish tournaments that don't fish. I'm like, hey, you put weights in your fish.
Oh,
Don't
that
even
joke.
say that to me.
Yeah.
And I was nice about it. I'm like, yeah, that, I'm happy that's over. I was like, but I don't even. It was a mess, and
Right.
I drove home from Green Bay that night that this happened, and Jason called me like in the middle of the night, and he knew I was driving, and I couldn't sleep or nothing. So I'm like, I'm just going home, and he's like, call me in the morning. So I called him in the morning. He goes, listen, because we were selling. My wife made a nice flyer. We were selling raffle tickets and to run this trip, this educational trip, because I wanted to learn how he was winning, and just to help this young
Man.
kid out. And it was just driving me crazy because I'm like, this might ruin my career, and I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
All I did was try to help this boy out, and so Jason said, when you get up in the morning, call me. So I called him, and he's like, put a post on Facebook. I'm gonna have all the guys respond to your post and just kind of get your name out of it, because when it happened, a lot of the pictures that people were sharing was me and Chase, like the flyer that we made, and so
Jeez.
Jason separated it, and I never heard anything about it again. It just like
Crazy,
went
man.
away with you know.
Selfish.
So it all worked out good.
How
The
long
little
does
boy, we
I'm
did
sorry.
raise a lot of money. The little boy, he's last time I checked, he was still doing good.
That's great, man.
He was
That's
cleared
great.
of cancer and everything. So
That's good. Well, I was just the last little question I had on that topic, just for my own curiosity. But like inside you guys as group, like I know all series or tours like that, guys are really close, which I'm sure that's why the reaction video is so bad. A lot of betrayal there. But like, how long do they suspect those guys were just you know being? I mean, are you talking a year, a couple years?
yeah, I heard a few years. So
Really?
about 3 years before they got caught, we were fishing a tournament on Mosquito Lake, and I keep talking about Naples and Dirk, and Napes and Dirk. They're really good fishermen on Mosquito. That's all they fish. I mean, they'll go to Lake Erie once in a while, but they've been fishing Western Reserve Walleye Association since it started 20 some years ago. But we were fishing a tournament on Mosquito Lake, and it was a spring tournament, and usually about 12, 13 pounds will win that tournament. So we come in. I was fishing with one of my other buddies, and Naples was with, I don't know if he was with Dirk or what, but we come in, and I told, we're sitting there, and Nate's like, "Did you get him?" I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "How much?" I go, "Enough to win, I think." He goes, "Over 14?" I go, "Yeah, I think I got 14 and a half pounds." And I goes, "What'd you get?" He goes, "I think I'm over 15." I go, "You got to be kidding me." And those were the two biggest weights that Napes and I ever caught on Mosquito Lake. Now, it's hard to say that when you're pre-fishing, because when I go pre-fishing, I'm not going to beat my fish up. I could probably sit there and beat them up and maybe catch them. Who knows? But that was the most weight we ever had on that lake, including our pre-fishing. And so we went to the weigh-in, and Napes is winning, and I'm like, dude, this is unbelievable. He had like 16 and a half pounds. Here comes Chase up there to the scales with almost 20 pounds. And this kid never fished that lake. I mean, I'd never seen him before. I'm like, who's this kid walking up here, and got these 20 pounds of fish? And I was in shock. And right then and there, one of our guys came up to Napes and said, "You need to protest this right now. There's no way he caught those fish here." and his teammate was sitting in a car in his truck with the windows up. I'm like, "Where's your?" I asked him, I go, "Why is your teammate here taking pictures?" He was like, "Oh, he had a panic attack today, and now I know why he had a panic attack."
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
I can't say for sure that he cheated in that tournament, but we're
Yeah,
pretty
a
sure he
lot of
did.
red
So
flags. I always
was,
say usually when there's smoke, there's fire. So I'm glad they got their asses burned eventually. But it's a
yeah,
shame
yeah.
all the money
So
they
it's
took
just
in the process.
it's this. I found a basket of fish one day on Mosquito Lake, and it was years ago, and there was a buoy, a fish marker, and we were just out there fun fishing. I had my cousin with me, and he was on the front of the boat, and he caught this fish marker. I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing?" I said, "That's somebody's marker. You can't open their marker because you're pulling it away." He goes, "This ain't somebody's marker," and he held it up, and it was a fish basket, had 3 walleye. I'm like, "Put that back." So I told the tournament director, and the next morning he ran up there and took the fish out of the basket, released them instead of sitting there and catching these guys. He should have just waited because
Right.
we knew it was one of the tournament guys. But
Yeah.
that's my first experience ever, even me suspected that somebody would cheat in the fishing tournament because it never even crossed my mind. And
Yeah.
but I guess where there's money to be won, people will do whatever it takes, and
Yeah.
that's
Sadly
what I
enough.
always said, man. We're pretty tight, group of guys, whether we're bass fishermen or walleye fishermen or whatever. And we when I my worst tournaments I ever had are the ones that I learned the most in. You know, and but like I said, I'll take a butt kicking every weekend just so everybody's playing fair. But when there's
Right.
cheating involved, it's just like any other sport, man. I
Yeah.
want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
So
Well, fair enough. I agree.
Um, Sammy, like I mentioned earlier, we're coming right up on an hour, and uh, if you could just kind of either give us maybe a cool story that I don't know, maybe you're fishing in like 1 to 2s and they kicked up to 15 to 20 foot waves and your boat flipped over twice, and some kind of cool story, or maybe just kind of something you learned kind of as your time as a pro in the walleye circuits, um, or just something kind of in life that you've learned that you can leave with our listeners. You got anything for us?
yeah, so we get used to being on the boat and not wearing a life jacket, things like that. And a couple years ago, we were fishing Sault Ste. Marie in a national championship on day one. We were trying to outrun a storm, and my teammate and I pulled up to a dock, and there was a lot of current and a lot of wind, and it was thunder and lightning. So we were in a hurry and pulled up to the dock, and I went to step off the boat, and he had the boat in reverse, kind of pulled me away. So, anyways, I hit the dock, broke my shoulder, broke my ribs, I was out. It knocked me out, and I was under the water for I don't know how long, 10 seconds, with no life jacket, all my Gore-Tex boots on. It was Memorial Day weekend, and almost drowned. I mean, 45-degree water, and I came to, and first thing I thought, I'm like, "Where's the keys at?" I knew I was in the water, but I thought I dropped the keys, but I got in habit. If I have to get the truck, I always put my keys in my jacket and Velcro it shut so I don't lose them. And but anyways, I tell everybody, you just never know. I mean, stuff happens so quick on the water. Always wear your life jacket. And always wear your kill switch. And I force myself to do it now. I see it. I was watching a bass tournament today, Major League Fishing. It might have been a recorded one, but I noticed a lot of the bass guys take their inflatable off and they leave it on their driver's seat, and I could see hooked to it was their kill switch, and that's what I've been trying to do is wear my inflatable with my kill switch already hooked to it, just take it off of my, just getting routine and taking it off and putting it on the driver's seat. But um, it's I don't know, man. Stuff happens so quick, and when you're in water, it doesn't take very long when the water's 45 degrees to
Dude.
you know
No.
die of hypothermia.
Yeah,
So,
you're
but I'm
lucky.
better now.
You're
So
lucky. I can't think of a freaking better piece of advice, man. And that's like probably completely caught you off guard. Scary
Yeah.
stuff, man. Scary
I mean, how
stuff.
many times have we stepped off the front of the boat, pull up to a dock, throw the boat neutral, and throw it in reverse, and it kind of hovers there?
Yep.
It's exactly what we did, but we were
You've
in
done
that
it a
current.
thousand times. Yeah,
1,000 times, man.
yeah,
So
it's crazy,
I always
dude.
tell people wear your life jacket till you get back in the truck.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
but one story I do have on Lake Erie, we were fishing. My wife was pregnant with our first kid. She was like 8 months pregnant, and we went out of Avon Point, Ohio, or Sheffield Lake. We're out there fishing, and after work one day, 1 footers, and we were listening to the radio. We seen a storm out to the north in Canada. They said it was going to hit east of Cleveland. And I looked up and I told my buddies, I'm like, get the lines in. They're like, what? I go, look out there. And it was like white coming at us. And that wind hit us. That storm turned and came in on the west side of Cleveland, right where we were. 88-mile-an-hour winds out of the north. And we were out like 12 miles of Lake Erie. Thank God I was in my Penyan at that time, and I had a bimini top. It blew it, just crushed it. Just as soon as that wind hit us, it just crushed that thing. And the one guy went down inside the cuddy cab and wouldn't come out. And but it took us about 3 hours to get in. And I mean, there was 10 footers. It went from 1 to 10 footers instantly. And I'll never forget. You can look it up. It was in 1995, I think, in July. There was 72 boats that were beached or over or capsized that night in that storm on Lake Erie. But we made it in. But
Dude.
you got to respect Lake Erie. They said it's the most treacherous lake in the world, and it is. But you got to respect any lake you fish on, and
Yes.
wear your life jackets for sure.
Mother Nature is undefeated.
Yep. Undefeated.
Hey, Sammy, do you have any sponsors or anything you'd like to mention before we wrap up here?
I do. My main sponsor is Bandit and Lindy, Lornette, Practical Outdoors. That's my main sponsor. They wrap my boat every year, and they help me out with some of my tournaments, things like that. Lowrance Electronics been a huge help for me, and thanks to them, I'm able to run a bunch of graphs on my boat, and any tech support, they always help me out with that. Cisco Fishing System makes all my rod holders. Vexus boats. I run Vexus boats now. And Mercury Outboards is one of my sponsors. Oh man, there's a whole bunch of them.
I
I'm
didn't mean to
starting to
put you
lose
on
them
the
now.
spot.
Look on my shirt. Summit Shuttles. I just got hooked up with them. For my active target, that's what I use on the ice. And what's nice about a Summit shuttle is, they give you an ice mount so you can stick your transducer through the ice, but you can just take that mount off and put a track mount on, so I could use that unit anywhere on my boat. And that's what a lot of guys call me and is like, hey, I want to get out to target, Ford Fish sonar. What should I do? And I'm like, buy a shuttle, because you can take it on ice and learn all year long. And if you go on your buddy's boat, you can take it on that boat. But yeah.
Yeah. And on social media, it's just Sammi Cappelli.
We have Pro Walleye too on Facebook.
Okay.
John Gull and I have that
Okay.
site. We got 54,000
Yeah, that's a
people
huge
on there now.
page. That's a huge
Yep.
page.
Yep. So it's been
Cool.
doing really good.
Yeah, man.
Fisherman Central, that's my dealer. They've been a big help.
Yeah.
Like I said, I got a boat for sale. It's a beautiful 2022 DVX with a 400 supercharger. It's a nice boat, man. There's not a mark on it. So
we just want a $10,000 finder's fee. We'll get her sold for you.
that's fine.
Yeah,
if you guys ever need anything, just give me a holler. And
yeah, dude.
if you ever want to do a radio show or anything, I'll get you hooked up with Mike Crate. He does Mahoning Valley Sportsman on Saturdays.
Oh, nice.
Get you on there, and if you guys if you're interested in that, or if you ever want to get a day on the water, just let me know.
Yeah,
So have some
absolutely.
fun.
I'd love to learn how to catch those toothy critters.
Yeah, you gave out some juice tonight, man. Really appreciate it. I know someone will benefit from it. I mean, I have, so appreciate it.
It's like I said, a lot of guys fishing tournaments when I was coming up helped me out, and I'm not gonna, if someone asks me for information, I'm gonna tell them the way it is.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie about it. So
No, we appreciate it. I mean, honestly, that's the whole purpose of this podcast. just to support other anglers, just like your net man on the boat, right?
Yep.
Just there to help each other out and all learn and grow together as anglers. So,
Yep.
no, we truly appreciate it, Sammy.
Okay, man.